711B, and today's date is February 24th, 2022, and the title of the episode is Planned Long Ago, Deep State Stronghold and Destroyed, Trump Never Telegraphs His Moves. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, Putin, he decided to go ahead and attack Ukraine. Now, we saw this back in 2014, 2015, around that time frame. And during that period of time, what did Putin do? Well, Ukrainian forces, they decided to attack those areas of Donetsk and Luhansk, and they tried to push into those areas. And the Russian people in those areas, they were fighting back. And they were approaching, getting closer and closer. And actually, Russia did assist in this. And they actually came into Ukraine and pushed the troops pretty darn far back. Now, did Putin stay in Ukraine after that? No. He actually left. He destroyed the military at that time and said, okay, enough is enough, and retreated back into Russia. Of course, the Ukrainian forces, they couldn't do anything. They were destroyed. And remember, Putin, he doesn't want Ukraine. Let's fast to right now. What is Putin doing? Is he starting World III? Did he invade Ukraine? Or is there another mission going on? I do believe there's another mission going on. This is not an invasion. It's a tactical hit. I'm sure they had some intel because we found out a lot of information. We understand there are neo-Nazis within Ukraine. We know there's a bunch of corruption in Ukraine. We know that the Obama administration, along with Biden, Clinton, and the rest, they had regime change in Ukraine. And we have certain individuals in Ukraine that are actually controlling the country. Just like the deep state here in the United States or the CCP in China. And we can see that it seems that the go-ahead was given to move into Ukraine to destroy strategic areas. Now, before we get to that, let's just go back in time. Remember, and this is coming from Hans Manecki. This is on Twitter. It says, none of this would have happened without Biden and Nuland instigating when Kerry was Secretary of State. It says, Biden's son, Kerry family friend, joined Ukrainian gas producers board. Now, we knew about this from the Post. But it seems that John Kerry, he's not worried about that. He's more worried about climate change right now and how this will affect the climate crisis, because that is the biggest problem right now. And he's hoping that Russia will continue and keep their promise with the climate crisis. I don't think they're going to. I think eventually what they're going to do is they're going to back out. Now, I want to flash back all the way back to 2017 because there was a CNN article all the way back then. It says the following: Corker, Trump setting U.S. on the path to World III. Was there a World III with Trump? Did Putin invade Ukraine? Did any of this happen? No. When did it happen? On Biden's watch. Now let's flash back to 2019. This is coming from Canaccord the Great, and this is Biden. He says, Putin's days of tyranny and trying to intimidate the United States and Eastern Europe are over if he is elected president. So this is back in 2019. Is that holding true? No, nothing Biden is saying that he said is holding true. Everyone can see this now. And people, they're starting to realize the truth. Now, there is a reason why Trump, and I do believe he's working with Putin, and most likely Zelensky, which we mentioned yesterday. I do believe that this is not about an invasion. This is not about taking over Ukraine, starting World III. This is about removing the deep state. Now, do I think we're going to see a lot more of these type of operations? I do believe so. Actually, Trump has already mentioned that we might see other operations like this. And remember, we need to think about the optics about all of this. Trump is not even involved. If you're thinking about devolution, who's controlling everything? Is it really the resident, or is it the military? So think about everything that we're seeing in Ukraine, and as we go through this, I do believe it's going to start to make sense. Now, we can see the deep state players, they're panicking right now. This is Andrew Bates. This is the White House Deputy Press Secretary. And it seems like he's a little angry at Trump. Now remember, Trump has nothing to do with this. Remember, optics are very important. So Trump, he's a citizen, and the resident is in the White House, and he's supposed to be taking care of business here. So this is what he says. Two nauseating, fearful pigs who hate what America stands for and whose every action is driven by their own weakness and insecurity, rubbing their snouts together and celebrating as innocent people lose their lives. So he's talking about Trump because he was praising Putin, saying, oh, he's pretty smart. He knows what he's doing. And I do believe there was a little bit of coordination between Trump and Putin. And I do believe Zelensky, I think he needs to be involved in this. But remember, optics have to look really good because the mission here is to get rid of the deep state stronghold. We've known for a very, very long time that Ukraine is corrupt. So among these cyber options, U.S. is considering disrupting internet connectivity across Russia, shutting off electric power, tampering with railroad switches to hamper Russia's ability to resupply its forces. Now, think about this for a second. Are they prepping all of this for a communication blackout in the continental U.S.? Because if the United States goes ahead and does this, and I'm talking about the resident, are they going to blame what is happening here in the United States on Russia? I do believe so. But we need to go back in time a little bit. Remember Klaus Schwab? He was predicting a cyber. So are they prepping for this cyber? So just take a listen to what Klaus Schwab said.
We all know, but still pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison.
Outage doesn't mean the local power grid might flicker or go off. And it doesn't mean that the internet might be paused. Actually, we were told it was going to be paused. So this is actually a red line. And it's red too. It's a central communication blackout, continental U.S. I do believe that they're going to end up crossing this. Why? Because the Patriots now are going after the deep state players. Remember, this is the offensive now. This is the offensive. Trump, the Patriots, and those people that are working with Trump, they are now going on after the deep state. So Russia is saying that Putin will decide when the Ukrainian invasion ends. Now, when will it end? We'll be talking about that in just a sec. But I wanted to talk about the arrests that are going on now in Ukraine. And it seems that they are most likely arresting the neo-Nazis. Remember, this is about draining the swamp, getting rid of those individuals, the corrupt individuals inside of Ukraine. And we can see that the neo-Nazis, the deep state players, the swamp creatures, they're very, very nervous about this because they were caught destroying and burning documents near an intelligence building in Kiev. That tells you that they're panicking right now because everything that they created, everything that they put into place back in 2014, 2015 with the regime change is now falling apart. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is clandestine. Now,
Hi, this is Marcus from Tesla, and this is Tesla Bike. It's been quite some journey with over 2 years of development, but finally it's here. Everything is engineered and developed in the woods of Småland here in Sweden. Our eminent professor, Dr. Uwe Hager, was...
As soon as he put this out on Twitter, Twitter suspended the account. But it was saved in Threader. So we have the information right now of what he was talking about. And he says, I think I might be onto something about Ukraine. Zelensky said the Russians are firing at military installations. How broad is that term? I'm seeing speculation that it could include U.S. installed. At first, I was like, no way, it can't be. And then started to look at all the places where the missiles were headed and what they were destroying. He said, first I checked if the U.S. even have Ukraine. Turns out we do. It's just for defense. Not that big of a deal, right? Wrong. I don't know this until today, and they have good reason to believe that as the U.S. NIH funded gain of function in Wuhan, then C-19 got out and it ruined the world. So how does this pertain to Ukraine? Well, where in Ukraine are the explosions taking place? Here's a reported explosion in Luhansk. This is 75 miles inland in far western Ukraine, the opposite border of Russia. What does this have to do with Crimea, Donetsk in this east? Reportedly, Kiev has seen missile strikes as well at their airports and military installations. Kiev is also on the western side of Ukraine, also a city the U.S. government have confirmed the U.S. have built in. Putin also continues to call it a special military operation. Says he wants to demilitarize and denazify. Yes, that's the word he used, denazify. We'll be talking about that in just a sec. Denazify the country, but not occupy it. What does he mean by that? What is he really targeting? Yes, I know he targeted airports and military capabilities, but if Putin really believes, as his admin has stated publicly multiple times, that the U.S. are creating at Russia's borders, then this entire situation could be way bigger. So when you look at the maps between the places where Russia is bombing and where they are located, they're pretty much identical. And yes, there are a couple of other places where they bomb, but it looks like they've been hitting these areas strategically. Now, we've come to find out that there's about 11 in Ukraine. 7 of them have been hit. And I just want to go back in time. Remember what Bill Gates said? That, oh yeah, Omicron, it was like, it just got rid of them. He seemed very, very upset about that because they were going to use this to bring us into the Great Reset. And he said, well, there's another coming. It's starting to make sense now because they've been using Ukraine and Wuhan to create these. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump and the Patriots, Putin and the rest, they knew what they were planning to do. They knew the playbook and they had to take action. But talking about the deep state players, to keep their agenda moving, they need some type of cover story. They need something like, which they're not going to get, which they were using and it fell apart. And this is why Gates said, oh, there's another one coming because they want depopulation, they want control. That doesn't seem like that. This is going to be good. Show me. That's working anymore because it seems that Putin, Trump, and I do believe Zelensky's on board with this. They are now taking out all these different locations. So Putin, he's carrying out a cleanup operation. Trump, I do believe, is working with other leaders. And if you wanted to drain the swamp and destroy the deep state system worldwide, do you work with other leaders? Do the optics have to be right? Think about it. Why would Putin pick this moment? He could have picked any moment. He could have picked the moment during Obama's presidency. He could have said, okay, you know something? You just taken over Ukraine. I'm coming in and I'm resetting everything. Why did he pick now to do it? Did he have a deal with Trump? Is he working in coordination with Trump? I do believe Trump is working in coordination with many different leaders. If you notice, NATO, they decided not to respond. Ukraine's not part of NATO. If you notice, why didn't Biden just bring in U.S. troops into the area? Well, first of all, the people don't want this. The people don't want anything to do with Ukraine. And remember, everything that's happening out in Ukraine right now only has to do with the deep state players and their foot soldiers. This is their money laundering system and everything else that they have here. This is their base of operations. So think about everything that's happening right now. Think about devolution. The military is actually in control of all of this. They're watching the situation, and I do believe they already know the plan. They already know what's happening, and the military is not going to be going in there. Yes, Biden can send troops to other places, but the military is not going to fight this. I do believe it's probably one of their PEDs that has been activated once this started. And Russia has already come out and said, we have no plan to take over Ukraine. That's not what we're doing here. Our mission is to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. And denazify is very, very important because it's an unusual word to use when you're on a type of mission like this where you're hitting certain targets. Why would you think there's Nazis in there? Why would he even mention that word? Well, let's go back in time a little bit, and this is back in 2015. And this an article says the CIA may be breeding Nazi in Ukraine, and it says the CIA has been secretly training anti-Russian groups in Ukraine since 2015. Everything we know points to the likelihood that includes neo-Nazis inspiring far right across the world. Based on a new report, it looks like we may soon be able to add another to that list of fatally unlearned lessons, Ukrainian neo-Nazis. Now, remember, when they had regime change in Ukraine back in 2014, it was the neo-Nazis that took over the government. The deep state players, they used the neo-Nazis in this area, just like they used Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State. These are the foot soldiers of the deep state players. So when Putin says he's getting rid of the neo-Nazis, he's getting rid of the neo-Nazis that are embedded in the government. And we need to remember something very important. All the other leaders in Ukraine, they were installed by the deep state. I do believe Zelensky, if he's working with Trump, and it does seem like he is at this point, he was voted in by the people. And it was almost like he was Trump, but in Ukraine. But he's having a very difficult time in Ukraine because why? The neo-Nazis control everything. They are the swamp. Just like we have the deep state players here. The deep state makes it very difficult for Trump to do anything. And this is why I do believe we need, and I'm talking about the Patriots, we need to get rid of the swamp, get rid of all the swamp creatures across the world. Worldwide, all of this needs to be brought down. Now let's go back to post 936. This is March 10th, 2018. Coming up on a 4-year delta. There's a picture going back to World II, and it's showing a picture of Nazis. And they're all hailing Hitler. But down below, I'm going to read the whole post. It says the Nazi order. NWO, where everyone says New World Order, it's actually not New World Order. The N does not refer to new. The N refers to Nazi World Order. The sum of all fears, North Korea, POTUS, hostage threat, disarm, stage set, freedom. And I do believe that's exactly what's going on right now. Now, Russia, they came out, and this is a Kremlin spokesperson, they already said these are the terms for surrender. Removal of all weapons from the country. So we'll have to see what Ukraine does, because I do believe this might be going on for a couple of days. I don't know the exact time frame. But I do believe in the end, Zelensky's going to say, okay, we surrender, and there's going to be some type of peace agreement, and there's going to be arrests all over the place. So this is Hillary Clinton. I am praying for the people of Ukraine. The world would hold Russia and Putin accountable for the human suffering and destruction this unjustified and unprovoked will bring. Well, first of all, they're not targeting civilians. Second of all, they're hitting strategic targets. Remember when Trump decided to fire missiles into Syria? He didn't hit civilians. He was hitting strategic targets. And I do believe this is exactly what's going on right now. Actually, what she's saying is that, holy crap, he's destroying everything that we built there. Adam Schiff said, this is Putin's senseless, tragic, and barbaric. We must enact debilitating sanctions on Russia and cut them off from the global economy. And in the meantime, we pray for the Ukrainian people and an end to this madness. He's panicking right now. The madness is his because they are destroying everything that they have out in Ukraine. Nancy Pelosi, an attack on Ukraine is an attack on democracy. I applaud POTUS for his forceful leadership in imposing the first tranche of swift and severe sanctions to counter Russian aggression. The U.S. and our allies stand together in our unwavering support of the Ukrainian people. And this goes on with Swalwell, it goes on with Biden, but these people are panicking because everything that they have there, their money laundering scheme, the way they get paid, it's completely falling apart right now. Putin is not going after civilians. He doesn't want to hurt the people. He's going after the swamp creatures. He's going to denazify the country. Because we know, if we go back to the regime change back in 2014, 2015, we know that it was the Nazis that were used to take over Ukraine, to overthrow an elected leader there, and then put in puppet governments until Zelensky came along.